On a quiet research outpost that circled the planet, Kestros VA young woman named Leela Morgan sat alone in a dim room filled with soft humming machines. The walls were lined with screens that blinked with endless streams of data from deep space. Most of it was noise static from dead stars or routine signals from trade ships, but Lila was not looking for the usual. She was searching for something strange, something no one else had noticed. Lila had always been curious. As a child, she would take apart old radios just to see how they worked. Now at 24, she worked for the Galactic Defense Coalition as a junior signal analyst. Her job was simple: watch the data, find anything unusual and report it. Most days, nothing happened. But today was different. In the far corner of her main screen, a tiny pulse flickered. It was so faint most systems would have ignored it. But Lila had built a custom filter that caught odd rhythms in the noise. This signal had a pattern. It repeated every 17 minutes and 3 seconds. More importantly, it carried a strange echo, a second tone that trailed behind the main pulse like a whisper. She leaned closer, her eyes wide. The signal came from the Andromeda Veil, a region so far out it was barely mapped. No human ship had ever gone that deep. No known alien race lived there either. The Coalition had labeled it dead space, yet something was calling from there. Lila ran the signal through every decoder she had. None of them recognized the structure. It was not a distress call in any known language. It did not match military codes or emergency beacons. But the echo, that second tone, felt familiar in a way she could not explain. It reminded her of the wind through tall grass or the hum of a tuning fork left on a windowsill. She hesitated. Protocol said to log it and move on. If it was important, someone higher up would notice. But Lila knew better. She had learned long ago that the universe did not shout its secrets. It whispered them to those who listened. Without telling anyone, she copied the data onto a secure chip. Then she sent it through a private channel to the one person she trusted more than anyone, Dr. Elise Carter. Elise was her mother's older sister. Once a famous Izano-linguist, she had helped decode the first alien message ever received by humanity. That discovery had changed everything. But after a quiet scandal involving lost data and broken trust, Elise had vanished from public life. Now she lived alone on Oran's Hollow, a small fringe world known for its purple forests and silent nights. Lila had not seen her aunt in years, but they still wrote sometimes short letters about stars' old songs and the way rain sounded on metal roofs. Elise always signed her notes with a small drawing of a dragon. The message reached Oran's Hollow 2 days later. Elise was in her garden pulling weeds from around a circle of smooth stones when her old tablet buzzed. She wiped her hands on her trousers and sat on the mossy bench to read. At first she frowned. Then her breath caught. The signal. It was not just strange. It was impossible. Elise stood quickly, nearly dropping the tablet. She walked to the back of her cottage where a patch of earth was always kept bare. She knelt and pressed her palm flat against the soil. A low hum rose from below. The ground shimmered like water. Then a shape emerged, slowly at first, then faster, until a sleek ship stood before her. It was shaped like a crescent leaf, its surface smooth and dark like polished obsidian. Vines of silver light pulsed along its sides. This was the Whisper Wing, a vessel older than human history. Elise had found it buried beneath her home when she was just a girl. She had never told anyone about it, not even Lila. Now she knew why it had waited. Inside the ship, the air smelled like rain and old paper. The walls glowed softly as if breathing. In the center of the main chamber, a small dragon lay curled on a nest of woven reeds. His name was Silas. He was no bigger than a house cat, with silver scales that shimmered in the dim light. His eyes opened slowly as Elise entered. "You heard it too, didn't you?" she said softly. Silas made a low sound deep in his throat, not a growl but a hum that matched the frequency of the signal Lila had sent. Elise sat beside him and played the recording from her tablet. The moment the echo filled the room, Silas lifted his head. His wings fluttered once. Then he began to hum along. The sound was gentle but powerful. The walls of the ship brightened in response. Elise felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard that melody before, not in any lab or archive, but in her dreams. As a child, she would wake crying from dreams of tall women with silver hair singing under twin moons. Her mother would hold her and whisper, "It is just a dream." But now Elise knew better. The signal was not a call for help. It was a memory, and it was meant for her. She turned to the ship's console. Her fingers moved quickly over the smooth surface. The Whisper Wing responded with a low thrum. Outside, the sky darkened as the ship lifted from the ground. Trees bent away from its path. Birds scattered in silence. Silas climbed onto her shoulder, his claws light as feathers. His warmth was a comfort against the cold fear rising in her chest. They flew through the atmosphere and into the black. Stars stretched into lines as the ship folded space around itself. The journey would take less than a day. But Elise knew that when she arrived, nothing would be the same. Meanwhile, on Kestro's V, Lila watched the signal fade. She did not know where her aunt had gone, but she felt it in her bones something big was happening. She turned off her monitors and stepped outside. The planet's twin suns were setting, painting the sky in red and gold. She looked up and whispered, "Be safe." Far away near the edge of the Andromeda Veil, the source of the signal waited. It was not a ship. It was not a station. It was a person, floating alone in the void, wrapped in tattered robes that shimmered like starlight. Her skin was pale as moonstone, her hair long and silver. Her eyes were closed, but her lips moved silently, forming words no one could hear. Around her, the debris of a shattered moon drifted slowly. Pieces of metal and stone circled like mourners at a funeral. In her hand, she held a cracked crystal orb that pulsed with a soft blue light. Each pulse sent out the distress beacon. She was dying, but she had done what she came to do. She had sent the song, and someone had answered. As the whisper wing dropped out of folded space, Elise saw her. She gasped. The figure looked like the women from her dreams. Tall, graceful, otherworldly. Silas hissed softly, not in fear, but in recognition. Elise guided the ship closer. The air outside was thin and cold. She put on a light suit and opened the airlock. Silas stayed inside, watching from the window, his eyes wide. The silver-haired woman floated just meters away. Her chest rose and fell slowly. When she opened her eyes, they glowed faintly like distant stars. She looked at Elise and smiled. "You came," she whispered, her voice carried by a small field around her. "I knew you would." "Who are you?" Elise asked, her voice shaking. "My name is Nira Voss, last of the Silthari." Elise had never heard that name before, but it felt right, like a word she had always known but forgotten. The Silthari were real. She said more to herself than to Nira. Once Nira said, "Now only me." She held out the crystal orb. "Take it. It holds the last of our song. The Maw is coming. It has already eaten 3 galaxies. Soon it will reach yours." What is the Mawa hunger that cannot be filled? It does not kill. It unmakes. It erases. Elise took the orb. It was warm and vibrated gently. Silas let out a soft cry from inside the ship. Nira looked past her at the dragon. Her eyes filled with tears. "He is still with you, after all this time. You know him. He is the last Fireheart, bound to your line since the first dawn." Elise did not understand, but she felt the truth in the words. She helped Nira into the ship. The woman was weak, barely able to stand. Silas nuzzled her hand and let out a soothing hum. As the whisper wing turned toward home, Elise looked at the stars. They seemed different now. Brighter. Alive. She did not know what the Maw was or how to stop it, but she knew one thing. The galaxy was about to change, and it had already begun. The whisper wing glided through the dark like a leaf on a quiet river. Inside the ship, the air was still and warm. Nira lay on a soft cot near the rear chamber, her breathing slow and shallow. Her silver hair spilled across the pillow like threads of moonlight. Elise sat beside her, watching the rise and fall of her chest. Silas curled at the foot of the bed, his silver scales dim but steady. Elise had never seen anyone like Nira. Her skin was smooth and pale like polished stone. Her fingers were long and delicate. Even in sleep, her face held a quiet strength. But there was pain there too, deep and old. After hours of silence, Nira opened her eyes. They shimmered like water under stars. She looked at Elise and smiled faintly. "Thank you," she said. "For what? For not leaving me out there?" Elise shook her head. "I could not have. The signal had called to me. To Silas, too." Nira turned her head toward the dragon. He lifted his head and made a soft sound like wind through reeds. She reached out and touched his snout. He leaned into her hand. He remembers her voice was barely a whisper. Remembers what? The old world. The songs. The fire. Elise wanted to ask more, but she saw how tired Nira was. Instead, she brought her water from a clear flask. Nira drank slowly, then lay back. "Where are we going?" Nira asked. "Home. Oren's Hollow. It is safe there, quiet, good. I need to rest. But not for long. The Maw moves fast." Elise nodded. She stepped into the front chamber and checked the ship's course. The stars outside blurred as the whisper wing folded space again. They would be home in a few hours. Silas followed her. He climbed onto the console and looked up at her with wide eyes. "You know her, don't you?" Elise said. The dragon blinked once. Then he hummed a low note. It was the same note from the distress signal. Elise sat down heavily. Her mind raced. All her life she had felt different, like she did not quite belong. Her mother had died when she was young. Her father never spoke of her past, but now pieces were falling into place. Silas was not just a pet. Naira was not just a stranger. They were part of something older than humanity. When they reached Orin's Hollow, the sky was purple with dusk. The Whisper Wing landed gently in the garden where it had risen days before. The ground closed over its landing marks as if it had never been there. Elise helped Naira out of the ship. The elf woman leaned on her arm but stood tall once her feet touched the soil. She looked around at the tall trees, the mossy stones, the quiet pond. "This place sings," she said. "It is peaceful," Elise replied. "Peace is rare now. The maw has made silence its weapon." They went inside the cottage. It was small but warm. Shelves lined the walls filled with books, jars of dried herbs, and strange crystals. A fire burned low in the hearth. Naira sat by the fire, Silas at her feet. Elise made tea from mint that grew by the back door. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Naira spoke. "My people, the Silthari, lived among the stars long before your kind walked upright. We did not build cities of steel. We shaped light and sound. We sang worlds into being." Elise listened, her hands wrapped around the warm cup. "We believed the universe was kind, but we were wrong. Something woke in the void between galaxies. It had no name at first. We called it the Maw because it consumed everything, not just matter, memory, meaning, hope. How did you fight it with the song of creation? It is not just music. It is the pattern that holds reality together. Only the Silthari could sing it, and only with a fireheart dragon at their side." Silas lifted his head at the mention of his kind. "There were many once," Naira said sadly, "but the Maw hunted them. One by one they fell. Their fire went out. Their songs ended. What happened to your people? We sang the Great Ward, a final song to push the Maw back. It worked, but the cost was everything. Our world shattered. Our bodies turned to dust. Only I remained because I carried the last seed of the song in this orb." She held up the cracked crystal. It glowed faintly. "And you sent the beacon, I sent the echo of the song, a call only a fireheart or one of my blood could hear. I did not know if anyone would answer, but you did." Elise looked at Silas. He had been with her since she was a baby. Her mother had left him as a gift. Now she understood. "My mother was Silthranira," nodded. "Yes, she was my sister. She left our world to hide among humans. She loved your father. She wanted a quiet life. But she knew the Maw would return. So she bound Silas to you, to protect you, to prepare you. Prepare me for what to sing." Elise laughed, but it was a nervous sound. "I cannot sing, not like that. I am not even fully Silthari. You do not need to be full. You only need to be willing. The song does not care about blood. It cares about heart." Silas stood and walked to Elise. He placed his head on her knee. His eyes held hers. In them she saw not just a pet but a guardian, a friend, a part of her soul. That night Elise dreamed. She stood on a plain of glass under twin moons. Tall figures in silver robes surrounded her. They sang a melody that made the stars tremble. In the center of the circle, Silas stood larger than she had ever seen, his wings spread wide, his body blazing with golden light. Then the ground cracked and darkness rose from below. She woke gasping. Naira was already awake, sitting by the window watching the stars. "It has begun," she said. "What the Maw senses the song. It knows we are here." Elise stood and went to the window. Far in the sky a star flickered, then went dark. "It is closer than I feared. What do we do must go to the Heartstone. It is the source of the Silthari power, buried deep beneath this world. Your mother hid it here long ago. Here, yes. She knew one day you would need it." They left at dawn. Silas walked between them, his steps light but sure. They followed a narrow path through the purple forest until they reached a cliff face covered in vines. Naira placed her hand on the stone. It shimmered and opened like a door. Inside, a tunnel glowed with soft blue light. The walls were carved with symbols that pulsed as they passed. At the end of the tunnel was a chamber. In the center floated a large crystal heartstone, it was called. It beat like a living thing. Elise felt its rhythm in her chest. "This is where the song begins," Naira said. Silas circled the heartstone. Once then sat. He looked at Elise and made a soft sound. "Go on," Naira urged. Elise stepped forward. Her hands trembled. She placed them on the heartstone. Warmth flooded her body. Images flashed in her mind, stars being born, oceans rising, mountains forming. Then a voice not her own began to sing inside her. She opened her mouth and a note came out. It was shaky at first, but true. Silas joined her, his hum deep and steady. The heartstone brightened. Light filled the chamber. Nira watched, tears in her eyes. It is working. But then the light flickered. Elise gasped and pulled her hands away. The note broke. I cannot, she said. It is too much, Nira said gently. You just need to trust yourself. And him. Silas nuzzled her hand. She took a deep breath and tried again. This time she did not fight the song. She let it flow through her. Silas matched her tone. The heartstone glowed brighter than ever. Outside the sky darkened, not from clouds but from something else. A shadow moved between the stars. Cold and vast, the maw had found them. Nira looked at Elise. We do not have much time. You must learn the full song. And Silas must awaken his fire. What fire? The inner flame of a fire heart. It is not just heat. It is pure creation. But it has never been lit in him. Your mother kept it dormant to protect you both. How do we light it with the song? But it will hurt him. Maybe even kill him. Elise looked at Silas. He looked back unafraid. No, she said. There has to be another way. There is not. The maw cannot be fought with weapons or ships. Only with the song. And the song needs fire. Elise knelt beside Silas and put her arms around him. He was small but strong. She had raised him, fed him, played with him. He had slept at the foot of her bed every night. He was family. I am sorry, she whispered. He licked her cheek once. Then he stood and walked to the center of the chamber. He looked at the heartstone and let out a long, low hum. Do it, he seemed to say. Nira began to chant in the old tongue. Elise joined her. The song rose around them, filling the chamber with light and sound. Silas closed his eyes. His scales began to glow. First silver, then gold, then white-hot. He cried out a sound like breaking glass. Elise wanted to stop, but Nira held her arm. Let it happen. Flames erupted from Silas, not red or orange, but pure white. They did not burn the stone or the air. They sang. The fire twisted into shape, stars, galaxies, wings. Then it stopped. Silas collapsed. His scales were dull, his breathing shallow. Elise ran to him. He was alive but weak. It worked, Nira said. The fire is lit. But he will need time to heal. How much time? Not enough. Outside, the shadow grew larger. Stars vanished one by one. The coalition will not know what is happening, Elise said. They will see their worlds go dark and think it is a solar storm. By the time they understand, it will be too late. We have to warn them and do what sends ships against a force that eats reality. They would vanish before they fired a shot. Then what? We go to them. We show them the song. We make them believe. Elise looked at Silas, then at Nira. She felt fear, but also something else. Purpose. All right, she said. We go. They returned to the surface. The Whisperwing waited. Silas was too weak to walk, so Elise carried him. His body was light but warm. As they boarded the ship, Nira looked at the sky. The darkness was closer now. It pulsed like a heartbeat. What arrives will change everything, she said. Elise nodded. Then let it change. The Whisperwing rose into the sky. Behind them, the heartstone dimmed. The Whisperwing cut through the black like a needle through silk. Inside the ship, the air hummed with quiet energy. Silas lay wrapped in a soft blanket near the rear console. His breathing slow but steady. His scales no longer glowed, but they held a faint warmth that pulsed in time with the ship's rhythm. Elise sat beside him, one hand resting on his side. Nira stood at the front, watching the stars blur past. They were heading toward the Galactic Defense Coalition's main hub, orbiting the star Helios Prime. It was the heart of human and allied space, the place where fleets were commanded, laws were made, and warnings were sent. If anyone could help, it would be there. But Elise was not sure they would listen. The Coalition had spent centuries building walls, not bridges. They trusted data, not dreams. They believed in weapons, not songs. How could she explain that the greatest threat in history could not be seen on a radar or shot with a laser? Silas stirred and opened his eyes. They were dull but aware. He looked at Elise and made a soft sound. You are stronger than you think, she whispered. Nira turned. We must prepare him. The song needs both voices, yours and his. How do we do that? By remembering. The fire is lit, but it must be shaped. It must learn to sing with you. They moved to the ship's core chamber, a round room in the center of the vessel. The walls were lined with living crystal that responded to sound. In the middle, a platform rose from the floor, smooth and warm to the touch. Silas climbed onto it with effort. Elise stood beside him. Naira stood opposite them, her hands raised. "This is not just about power," she said. "It is about trust. You must open yourself to him completely, and he to you." Elise nodded. She closed her eyes and began to hum the note she had learned at the Heartstone. It was soft at first, but grew stronger. Silas joined her, his hum deeper, richer. The crystals on the walls brightened. Naira began the chant in the old tongue. The words were strange but familiar, like echoes from a forgotten dream. The air grew thick with energy. Light swirled around them, then Silas roared. It was not a sound of anger but of release. White fire burst from his mouth, not wild but focused. It twisted into a beam that struck the far wall. The crystal there did not melt. It sang, a clear, pure tone that rang through the ship. Elise gasped. She felt the fire not as heat but as sound. It flowed into her bones, into her blood. She opened her mouth and sang a full note, this time clear and strong. The beam of fire bent toward her voice, following her tone. "It is working," Naira said, her eyes wide. But then Silas shuddered. His fire flickered. He cried out in pain and collapsed. The light vanished. The chamber fell dark. Elise dropped to her knees beside him. His scales were cold. His breath came in short gasps. "What happened?" she asked, her voice shaking. "The fire is too much for him," Naira said, kneeling too. His body was never meant to hold it for long. Not yet. Is he going to die? Not if we are careful. But each time he uses the fire, it will hurt him more. Elise stroked Silas' head. Tears fell onto his scales. He had given everything for her for this mission, and she had not even asked him. "We cannot keep doing this," she said. "We must," Naira replied gently. "The Maw is already at the edge of known space. 3 systems have gone dark in the last hour. Millions are gone. Erased." Elise looked at the stars through the chamber window. They seemed smaller, somehow dimmer, as if the light itself was afraid. What if we fail, then the galaxy ends, not with a bang, but with silence. They carried Silas back to his nest. He slept deeply, his body trying to heal. Elise stayed with him, holding his paw in her hand. She thought of her childhood, of quiet nights and lullabies her mother used to sing. She had always thought they were just songs. Now she knew they were lessons. Hours passed. The ship neared Helios Prime. Alarms began to sound not loud but urgent. Naira checked the scanners. "The Maw is here," she said. "We're at the outer rim. The Helios Gate Station is sending out emergency signals. They think it is a solar anomaly." "It is not an anomaly," Elise said, standing. "No, it is the end." They changed course toward the gate. As they approached, the view from the window made Elise's breath catch. The station was massive. A ring of metal and light that circled a small moon. Hundreds of ships moved around it, fighters, freighters, warships. But beyond it, the stars were gone, replaced by a swirling darkness that pulsed like a wound. The Maw. It did not move like a storm. It simply was. And where it was, stars ceased to exist. Not destroyed, forgotten. The Coalition fleet formed a line. Weapons charged. Shields raised. They did not understand what they faced. Elise opened a channel to the gate. "This is Dr. Elise Carter. I need to speak with command." Static hissed, then a voice replied. "Dr. Carter, your signal is weak and unauthorized. State your business." "I have information about the anomaly. It is not natural." "It is alive." The voice paused. "We have scientists on this. We do not need fringe theorists. This is not theory. It is fact. And if you fire on it, you will vanish." Another pause. Then the channel closed. "They do not believe us," Naira said. "They will when it is too late." Silas stirred. He lifted his head and looked at the darkness. His eyes narrowed. He knew. He remembered. Elise made a decision. "We go out there. What we show them, we make them see. It is too dangerous, it is more dangerous to wait." She turned the Whisper Wing toward the fleet. The small ship moved between the giant warships unnoticed at first. Then a voice boomed over open frequency. "Unidentified vessel, pull back. This is a combat zone. This is Dr. Elise Carter. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to save you." A warship turned its guns toward her. Warning shot fired. A blast of plasma shot past the Whisper Wing, shaking the ship. Silas growled low in his throat. Elise did not stop. She flew closer to the edge of the darkness. Then she stopped the ship and opened the outer comm. "Listen to me," she said, her voice clear and strong. "What you see is not a storm. It is a hunger. It eats stars and time and memory. Your weapons will not touch it. But there is another way." Silence, then a new voice. This is Admiral Cora Liu of the Coalition Fleet. Identify your source, Dr. Carter. I cannot explain it all, but I can show you. She turned to Naira. Are you ready? Naira nodded. Silas climbed onto the platform in the core chamber. His legs trembled, but his eyes were steady. Elise stood beside him. She took a deep breath and began to sing. The note was soft at first, then grew. Silas joined her, his hum deep and strong. The ship glowed. Light poured from its seams, not blinding, but pure. The crystals on the hull sang. On the warship scanners, the small vessel suddenly blazed with energy unlike anything they had seen. Admiral Liu watched from the command deck, her eyes wide. What is that? I do not know, sir, but it is not mechanical. It is organic, and it is singing. The song spread through space. It did not travel like sound. It simply was. Where it touched the darkness, the maw recoiled. Stars flickered back into view. On the gate station, people stopped. They felt it in their bones. A warmth, a hope they had forgotten. The song is real, someone whispered. Elise sang louder. Silas unleashed a beam of white fire. It did not strike the maw. It wove around it like thread around a wound. The darkness shuddered. But then Silas cried out. His fire dimmed. He fell to the platform, his body shaking. Elise stopped singing. The light faded. The maw surged forward. On the Admiral's screen, the small ship went dark. Bring them in now, Admiral Liu ordered. Fighters moved quickly. They surrounded the Whisper Wing and guided it into the gate station. Inside the hangar, Elise carried Silas in her arms. Naira walked beside her, pale but proud. Admiral Liu met them at the door. She was tall with sharp eyes and a scar across her brow. She looked at Silas, then at Elise. What was that? The only thing that can stop the maw, and it almost killed your dragon. It will kill him if we use it again, but it is the only way. The Admiral studied them. She had seen many strange things in her career, but this was different. She had felt the song. It had reached something deep inside her. Take them to the command chamber, she said. We need to talk. In the chamber, maps of the galaxy glowed on the walls. Red zones marked where systems had vanished. The maw was moving faster now. How long do we have? Elise asked. 2 days, maybe less. And the song, it can stop us, but it needs 2 voices, mine and Silas's. And it needs to be stronger, much stronger. How be singing together at the heart of the fleet, at the center of the maw's path. That is suicide, maybe, but it is the only chance. The Admiral paced. She looked at the maps, then at Silas, who lay on a soft mat, his breath shallow. I have lost too many ships already, she said. I will not lose more to a force I cannot fight. If your song is real, then I will give you everything you need. Thank you, Elise said. Do not thank me yet. If this fails, we all die. They spent the next hours preparing. Engineers studied the Whisper Wing not to copy it, but to understand its harmony. Medics tended to Silas, giving him nutrients and warmth. Naira worked with Elise, refining the song, teaching her the old words, the true notes. Silas slept most of the time, but when he woke, he looked at Elise with clear eyes. He knew what was coming. That night, Elise sat alone on the observation deck. The maw filled the view, a wall of nothing. She thought of her mother, of quiet nights on Orin's hollow, of Silas as a hatchling sleeping in her hands. She did not want to lose him, but she knew he would not let her face this alone. A soft step behind her. Naira joined her. He will be brave, she said. He always has been. You must be brave too. The song will ask everything of you. Your voice, your will, your heart. I know. If you break, the song breaks, and the maw wins. The song began soft like a breath in the dark. Elise stood on the platform inside the Whisper Wing, her hands open at her sides. Her voice rose clear and steady. Beside her, Silas lifted his head and hummed a deep note that vibrated through the ship's bones. The crystals on the walls glowed brighter with every beat of the melody. Outside, the fleet held its position. Hundreds of warships formed a great ring around the Whisper Wing. Their weapons silent, their engines low. On the command deck of the Helios Gate, Admiral Cora Liu watched the small vessel pulse with light. She had never seen anything like it. It was not power as she knew it. It was something older, something alive. The maw loomed ahead, a wall of nothing that swallowed stars whole. It did not move like a storm. It simply expanded as if space itself was folding into its hunger. But as the song grew stronger, the darkness slowed. It rippled like water touched by wind. Naira stood behind Elise, her eyes closed, her lips moving with the old words. She was not singing aloud, but her voice joined the others in spirit. She was the memory, the anchor, the last thread to a people long gone. Elise felt the song in her chest. It was not just sound. It was light and warmth and memory. She saw flashes of the Silthari world-tall silver trees oceans that sang under twin suns. She felt her mother's hand on her head. Her lullabies now clear as truth. And she felt Silas beside her, not just a dragon, but a brother, a guardian, a part of her soul. Silas opened his mouth and white fire poured out. It did not roar like flame. It flowed like liquid starlight weaving through the song. The beam shot from the ship and struck the edge of the maw. Where it touched, the darkness shuddered. Stars flickered back into view. Broken ships that had vanished reappeared, their hulls scarred but whole. On the warship's crews gasped. Scanners showed impossible readings. Dead zones came alive. Time itself seemed to mend. "It is working," someone whispered on the Admiral's deck. "Do not stop," Lai ordered. But inside the whisper wing, Silas trembled. His fire dimmed for a moment. A cry escaped him, sharp and pained. Elise felt it in her own chest like a knife between her ribs. "Keep going," Naira urged. "He can hold it." Elise sang louder, pushing past the fear. Silas answered. His fire blazed again, stronger than before. The beam widened, wrapping around the maw like a net of light. The darkness fought back. Tendrils of void lashed out, striking nearby ships. Shields failed. Metal turned to dust. But the song held. Then something changed. The maw began to shrink. Not fast, but sure. As if the song was pulling it apart thread by thread. The void hissed a sound no ear could hear, but every heart felt. It was rage. It was fear. "He is doing it." Silas whispered through the bond they shared. Elise did not know how she heard him. But she did, and she knew he was giving everything. The fire in him burned brighter than ever. His scales turned from silver to gold to white. His body glowed so hot the air around him shimmered. But his breath grew shallow. His legs shook. No, Elise thought. Not like this. But Silas did not stop. He poured his life into the song. The beam of fire became a river. It flowed into the heart of the maw where no light had ever been. There the song reached its peak. Elise sang the final verse, the one Naira had taught her in secret. It was not a word, but a feeling. A promise. A beginning. The maw screamed. Space tore open. Light exploded outward, not blinding, but cleansing. The darkness unraveled like old cloth. Stars returned. Planets reappeared. Time stitched itself back together. On the Helios gate, alarms blared not in warning, but in wonder. Systems came back online. Lost signals returned. People wept. "It is over," Liu said, her voice thick. But inside the whisper wing, silence fell. Silas collapsed. His fire went out. His scales turned dull gray. His eyes closed. Elise dropped to her knees beside him. She touched his side. No breath. No warmth, Silas, she whispered. Naira knelt too, her face wet with tears. He gave all. More than any fire heart ever has. Elise held him close. He was so light now, like a shell. She remembered him as a hatchling, small and curious. She remembered nights when he slept curled against her back. She remembered his hum when she was sad, his nudge when she doubted herself. He was not just a dragon. He was her family. Outside, the fleet cheered. Ships fired signal flares, not in war, but in thanks. The galaxy was saved, but Elise felt only loss. Admiral Liu boarded the Whisper Wing alone. She saw Elise holding Silas and said nothing. She simply stood and bowed her head. "What do you need?" Liu asked softly. "To go home." Liu nodded. "We will escort you." The fleet parted as the Whisper Wing turned away from the battlefield. Behind them, the stars shone brighter than ever. Ahead, the long road home waited. Elise did not speak. She held Silas in her arms, his body cool and still. Naira sat beside her, her hand on Elise's shoulder. No words were needed. The journey back to Orin's Hollow took 2 days. The ship moved slow as if it too mourned. When they landed, the garden was quiet. The purple trees swayed in the breeze. Birds sang. Elise carried Silas to the cottage. She laid him on his old nest by the fire. She covered him with the blanket he loved. Then she sat beside him and waited. Naira brought food, but Elise did not eat. She watched his still form, hoping for a flicker, a breath, a sign. Hours passed, then days. On the third morning, Naira placed a hand on Elise's back. "We must bury him." Elise shook her head. "Not yet." But as she spoke, she noticed something. A faint line on Silas's side, a crack, and through it a sliver of light. She gasped. Naira leaned closer. "What is that?" "I do not know." They watched. The crack grew wider. Light seeped out, not white but golden, with hints of blue and violet. It pulsed like a heartbeat, then a sound. Soft at first, then clear. A hum. Silas stirred. His body shifted. The cracks spread across his scales, but they did not break. They glowed. Light poured from them, filling the room. Elise backed away in awe. "He is not dead," Naira whispered. "He is changing." Silas rose slowly. His body was larger now, his wings broader. His scales shimmered like a living nebula, shifting colors with every breath. His eyes opened and they held galaxies within them. He looked at Elise and made a sound, not a hum but a song, short and sweet. "You came back?" she said, tears streaming down her face. He nuzzled her hand. Then he stepped outside. The sky above Orin's Hollow brightened. Clouds parted. Stars shone even in daylight. Birds fell silent, then sang in harmony. Word spread fast, not through signals or ships but through dreams. People across the galaxy woke with songs in their hearts. Children drew pictures of silver women and glowing dragons. Old fears faded. New hopes grew. The maw was gone. But something new had taken its place. Not a weapon, not a shield, but a promise. And it began with a woman, an elf, and a dragon who remembered how to sing. Weeks passed on Orin's Hollow, and the world settled into a new kind of quiet. The purple trees swayed under twin suns that seemed brighter than before. Birds sang in patterns that almost sounded like words. The air itself felt lighter, as if the sky had taken a deep breath and never let it out. Elise sat on the mossy bench outside her cottage, watching Silas circle above. He was different now. Larger, yes, but also calmer. His scales shifted like living skies, deep blues and soft golds swirling with every movement. When he landed, his wings folded like silk and his eyes held not just warmth but wisdom. He no longer slept on a nest of reeds. He rested on the stone circle in the garden where the whisper wing had first risen. Sometimes he hummed and the stones glowed in response. Naira stood nearby, tending to a new patch of silverleaf plants she had grown from seeds carried in her robes. They bloomed with tiny white flowers that chimed in the wind. She wore simple clothes now, no longer the tattered robes of a dying exile. Her hair was braided with vines and her steps were sure. They did not speak much. They did not need to. The silence between them was full of understanding. One morning a ship arrived. Not a warship or a scout, but a small civilian vessel with no markings. It landed gently at the edge of the field. A woman stepped out. She was tall with short dark hair and a calm face. She wore no uniform but carried a data pad like a scholar. Elise recognized her from news feeds. Dr. Maya Ellis, a historian who had written about lost civilizations. She had been one of the first to argue that the Silthari were real. Not myth. Elise met her at the gate. Silas watched from the garden, his eyes half closed but alert. "You came far," Maya said. "You came at all." Elise replied. Maya's gaze drifted to Silas. "I saw the recordings from Helios Gate. I heard the song. It changed me. I had to see for myself." Elise nodded. "Come in." They sat by the fire. Naira brought tea. Maya watched her with wide eyes. "You are Naira Voss. The last Silthari I was. Now I am just Naira." Maya's voice softened. "Your people shaped the stars. You sang worlds into being, and you returned when we needed you most. We did not return for you, Maya. We returned because the song called." And someone answered. She looked at Elise. Elise looked down. "I did not know what I was doing. I just followed what felt right." "That is how the song works," Maya said. "It does not ask for heroes. It asks for hearts." They talked for hours. Maya asked about the Silthari. "The fire hearts, the maw." Naira answered gently, not with pride but with sorrow and hope. Elise spoke little, but when she did, her words carried weight. Before she left, Maya placed a small crystal on the table. It held a recording. A child on a distant world singing a tune no one had taught her. The tune matched the first note of the song. "It is happening everywhere," Maya said. "People are remembering, not with words but with feeling. The galaxy is waking up." After she left, Elise walked to the pond. Silas joined her. He sat beside her, his tail curled around her feet. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. "The song or the peace, both?" He looked at the water. His reflection shimmered with stars. Then he hummed a single note. The pond rippled. Lilies bloomed where none had been. Elise smiled. "Maybe it will." Days turned into months. More visitors came. Not armies or officials, but teachers, artists, healers. They came not to take but to learn. They sat in the garden and listened to Naira's stories. They watched Silas fly and felt something stir in their chests. They left changed. The coalition sent no medals. They sent no statues. But they did something quieter. They stopped building weapons for a time. They began sharing songs instead. Schools taught the old melodies. Ships played them as they traveled between stars. Fear did not vanish, but it lost its grip. Lila came too. She arrived on a bright morning with a bag full of old notebooks and a smile that had not been there before. She hugged Elise tightly, then knelt before Silas. "You saved us," she whispered. He licked her hand once. Then he led her to the stone circle. She sat there for hours just listening. When she left, she carried a small silver leaf Nira had given her. It never wilted. Back on Oren's Hollow, life moved at its own pace. Elise still tended her garden. Nyra still grew her singing flowers. Silas still flew under twin suns. But something had shifted. The world was no longer just a hiding place. It was a beginning. One night, Elise stood on the hill watching the stars. Silas lay beside her, his head on her lap. Nyra joined them, holding 2 cups of warm mint tea. "Do you ever wonder what is out there now?" Elise asked. "Beyond the maw, you mean?" "Beyond everything. In the deep dark where no one is gone." Nyra sipped her tea. The maw was not the only hunger. There are others, older, quieter, but they sleep. And as long as the song lives, they will not wake. Elise looked at Silas. "And if they do, then we sing again." Silas lifted his head and hummed. The stars above pulsed in answer. They sat in silence for a long time. The wind carried the chime of silver-leaf flowers. Somewhere far off, a bird sang a note that matched the song. Elise knew then that the story was not over. It never would be. The galaxy had changed because something had arrived in answer to a call. Not a weapon, not a warship, but a woman, an elf, and a dragon who remembered how to sing. And as long as they remembered, others would too. In cities on 100 worlds, children looked up at the night sky and felt a pull they could not name. They drew pictures of tall women with starlight eyes and dragons made of fire and song. They hummed tunes they had never learned. And in their dreams, they walked through silver forests under twin moons. The Silthari were no longer a myth. They were a promise. And the promise was this: even in the darkest void, even when all seems lost, someone will hear the call. Someone will answer. And the song will begin again. On Oren's Hollow, the fire burned low. Silas curled around Elise like a living blanket. Nira watched the stars, her face peaceful. What arrived changed the galaxy forever. Not with force, not with fear, but with a single note of hope that grew into a song that would never end.